Welcome back to the Marathon series in depth. 6,000 Feet Under is the last level in the Citadel chapter and will mark an important step in our search for the Spit Cur. The level is actually fairly easy, although it picks up a bit at the end. This level makes you feel like you're in an actual cave with the geothermal shafts, which is quite cool. I love what the environment was able to create even in a game engine that is quite limited compared to today. This level was designed by Greg Kirkpatrick, and here is what he had to say about it. Big spaces. Some people liked it, some people hated it. I loved it, I lived it. This was where I learned the trick for avoiding ambiguous clip flags, which in the language of the uninitiated is when you can see too far. The caves and underground geothermal shafts beneath the Citadel are fairly open. The view limitation has been addressed in LF1 and is no longer a limitation in the game engine. This is why the caves in level turn, as they keep you from seeing too far. There was some documentation on this level for the level editors back in the day that you are welcome to read up on, and I will share those in the video description. As far as the ambiguous clip flag, all I know is that there is a comment in the Marathon 2 source code about it, but I couldn't describe it all beyond this. It's still possible to get ambiguous clip flags, usually in very narrow 1 pixel windows. The level name is a play on the phrase 6 feet under. This phrase is of course a reference to a deceased person being buried 6 feet below the ground. In this context, however, the security officer is searching the caves 6,000 feet below the surface of the Citadel. This could also be a reference to 6,000 Steps, an H.P. Lovecraft short story titled The Thing on the Doorstep, but I think this reference is a little less likely to have been an influence, although not unreasonable. Jules Verne's book, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, could also have been some influence on the level name. The depth of 6,000 feet is actually not as far down as we went in Bungie's previous title, Pathways into Darkness, in which we went 3,276.8 meters, or approximately 10,700 feet below the surface. The original level design notes tell us that this level was going to be a vacuum level. However, the terminals are actually quite a bit different from the final game. Here we are on 6,000 feet under. We just kind of dropped in right at the start with a ton of Flicta shooting down at us. Oh, and these guys came down and enjoyed us. And quite annoying because we had like nowhere to move because of lava. Usually you spawn here and not. I feel like that's the more common spawn spot. It actually got me turned around, but you can certainly spawn over here as we did. It's probably not the ideal spot. We'll come down over there later. We actually have to kind of go up and down this kind of area multiple times. We're gonna try to use our pistols as much as we can. As you can look, it looks. You know, this is obviously a platform that will rise up out of the lava. You can tell because it's discolored. We're going to jump down here rather than continuing up the cave because there's a switch down here we got to hit. And there's a little trick here. You can just kind of go like right here until he spawns. And he has no AI. So much easier to deal with that way. And then we can read this terminal.
The 4 Fleet is won, and Tycho is with them. My ship is crippled. I'm trying to make an emergency landing on Lawan's second moon, Yaloa. Your current position is too deep underground for me to teleport you out when we're finished here. There is a series of old SFIT terminals in the area, and if you could find them, I may be able to use them to amplify your teleport signal. Look everywhere. The answer to our questions must be here, but you must hurry. I'll need you with me, soon.
The logon screen shows some kind of distortion on Durandal's logo. We will see this more, but perhaps Durandal is either being damaged or having trouble communicating with us since his ship is now crippled. It almost looks like the logon screen has the word fake, but I am not sure if this is intentional or not. The logon screen at first line in the text in the terminal has what appears to be some gibberish in yellow. I think this is related to the idea that something is going on with Durandal and he is having trouble communicating with us. The terminal image shows the caves and geothermal shafts with lava beneath the citadel. This is the same image that we saw in the last mission. Durandal tells us that his ship has been crippled by Tycho and the Four, forcing him to crash land on the moon Iloa. Because of this, Durandal will have trouble teleporting us out of the level, and we will need to use some of the SFIT terminals on this level in order to amplify our target signal. We of course are still learning about what happened to the SFIT Kerr, but our searching is becoming much more urgent with each passing moment. Hopefully we'll find the answer soon. Hit that switch. No, that raises the lava up here. I guess we'll save it. I'm not happy with that initial start of the level, but it is what it is. This looks like a dead end over here, but it's not. So now we raise this up. Actually, I think there might be some... Okay, they got away. Try to hit some of these enemies as best we can. There's not much ammo on this level. There's a little bit in the network games, but no, that's just a times one shield recharge station. It's not the most helpful, but I suppose if you didn't have full health, it'd be nice to use. But now we gotta run all the way back up to get to that stairs and continue on. Right here, this is a jump across to the final part of the level. Just continue our way through the caves. I'm trying to use my pistol ammo to conserve other ammo. That was terrible by me. I didn't think he would be able to throw his rocks around the corner. It kind of disappointed me. We got to come back here later, so we're going to go the other way. There's a switch not too far ahead that we have to hit. I'm just soaking up damage. Okay, enough you. Apparently I hit some of them, some of each of them. These pistols kill them so slow on Legend. On Total Carnage. Let's read this.
We, the Elders of Svit, united finally, but doomed, have released the Skitlactor in the Citadel. Let these aliens enter here, and they will be destroyed.
This terminal tells us that after the meeting between the Elders, the Svit released the Skitlactor into the Citadel. Most people think that the Skitlactor is a bioengineered weapon based on a terminal later on. In the level this side towards enemy, we will dive deeper into this possibility when we get there. Yeah, I want to say the difficulty is legendary because I'm used to myth also, and then I have to remember this one is Total Carnage. Not sure why they just didn't stick with the same names for the level of difficulty, but for whatever reason they changed them. This level is an easier one. That's part of the reason why I wanna save my ammo. So let's come down here. This little another secret path. Let's read this terminal.
The ships came again today. It was night, I believe. Although with all the fires and without rest, it was indistinguishable from day. We are losing. It is obvious. But none of the elders have shown it yet. The enemy does not appear interested in arbitration, though we have not sought it. Steve believes that the invaders are slavers. Svidlar was overrun last rotation and tens of thousands of prisoners taken.
I am pretty sure the ships coming again is a reference to the 4 bombardment of the Citadel as discussed on the Hard Stuff rules. Being 6,000 feet under, I would expect this fit were relatively safe from this. It is certainly understandable that they would have a hard time distinguishing night from day down here. I am not sure why the fires would impact this fit who were way down here. Perhaps, however, this fit who wrote this terminal was actually on the surface within the Citadel. Anyways, it seems quite clear to this fit that they are losing and the end is coming. The terminal tells us that the 4 do not appear to be interested in arbitration, which lines up with the terminal on the Hard Stuff rules that said that it was not the 4 style to irradiate the Citadel and let the fit die slowly. The last sentence has a question mark for the name of the one who believes that the 4 invaders are slavers. My first suspicion would be Jarl with a Y, but it could also be the name of a fellow Svit. We learned that the Svitlar have already been overrun and tens of thousands of them were taken as prisoners. The Svitlar were the highest rank of the Svit clans and were also the ones who went to battle with the Svit Manur, which caused the Svit Kur to refuse to see the carnage upon Lowan. I think that last rotation is in reference to the previous day. This will mean that the Svitlar were very recently overrun, and thus the 4 are very hot on the Svit trail. This implies a couple things. 1. The Svit would not be holding much longer and would likely be overtaken in a matter of days. And 2. The 4 appear to have been bombing the Citadel, irradiating the Citadel, and sending 4 troops into the caves beneath the Citadel simultaneously. This is quite an aggressive tactic, isn't it? Hit this switch, and it opens up another switch. So now that switch, did something important. Trying to remember what it did. But anyways. Oh, it lowered the lava in that one room that we needed to get across. That's what it did. Now I remember. So we have to run all the way back up there. This is kind of like the nature of the level. Run through. So, yep. So here we go. There are some flicked on here. Took a few more pistol ammo after that, and that was more than I was expecting. Still have more than a ×1, so I can't use that. We can hit this switch, and then we got a terminal.
In primordial space, timeless creatures made waves. These waves created us and the others. Waves were battles, and battles were waves. Fleeing all work in Kakantur, Yarrow and Pythia settled upon Lawan. They brought the Svit, servants, who began to shape the deserts of Lawan into marsh and sea, rivers and forests. They made sisters for Lawan to protect and maintain the paradise. When the work in Kakantur came, Pythia was killed, and Yarrow, in his anger, flung the work in Kakantur into the sun. The sun burned them, but they swam on its surface. Yarrow became an angry master, bleeding for his failure, grieving for the loss of Pythia. He broke the Svit into 11 clans and spread them over Lawan. And he spoke, yet covered in blood from his exertion. I, Yarrow, who was your master, have failed to preserve you. take your royalty to guide you and live upon the paradise that you built for me.
This is another terminal about the origin of this fit that helps give us some context about what happened in their past. It is closely tied with the terminal on Bob's big date. This terminal would become important to understanding future events in the Marathon Trilogy. We learned that timeless creatures made waves that created this fit and others. We also learned that these waves could be battles. I think these timeless creatures are both the Yarrow and the Working Character. This terminal discusses Yarrow with the Wise battle with the Working Character, and this is probably one of the battles that was a wave according to this fit. I see these waves as some sort of event that would completely change the course of the universe. The effects of the event ripple out from the source until they make a major impact on just about everything. This would be similar to the idea behind the butterfly effect, in which even a small change can result in huge differences. The difference would be that these are not small changes, but rather cosmic events. This at least is how the terminal reads to me. There are other possibilities that the waves could be a light or a particle or a combination of both, but I'm not sure how to make sense of these other possibilities. This fit tells us that Yarrow with a Y and Pythia came to Lowan because they were fleeing the Working Character. Remember, we know from the terminal on the Hard Stuff rules that Yarrow with a Y and Pythia were the ones who gave this fit their sentience. This is the first time in the Marathon Trilogy that we brought up the Working Character. At this point, we don't know much about them other than that they are very powerful creatures as they caused the Yarrow to flee and were able to kill Pythia. Along with this, the Working Character was not killed by the sun, but instead swam on its surface. In the terminal, we learned that this fit shaped the deserts of Lowan into marsh, sea, rivers, and forests. I wonder how they were able to accomplish this. It sure does sound like Frank Herbert's Dune, doesn't it? There is the word Yarrow that translates to pitcher, mug, or tankard, which could have fit how this fit were able to terraform the deserts of Lowan. Perhaps one of the purposes taken on by the Yarrow was to create life and to make planets inhabitable. The terminal tells us that this fit made sisters for Lowan to protect and maintain the paradise. We know that this fit used the word sister in reference to the moons of Lowan. Did this fit, with the help of the Yarrow, literally make Lowan's moons? Perhaps, however, sister is some sort of device or station that this fit used in order to change the world of Lowan. We will have to wait and see if we learn more as we go. Anyways, this Working Character was able to kill Pythia, and this angered Yarrow with a Y. This caused Yarrow with a Y to fling the Working Character into the sun, but this did not kill them, but seems to have been enough for the threat to be contained, at least for a while. We don't really know if the Working Character is still there on the sun or not. The terminal explains that Yarrow with a Y was angry, grieving, and bleeding in failure. This makes it sound like someone who has lost someone very close to them. I wonder if Yarrow with a Y and Pythia were actually husband and wife, or at least whatever the Yarrow called this sort of relationship. After all, Pythia with a similar spelling was the name of several different women in Greek mythology. The game really doesn't make it clear that these two individuals had any sort of romantic relationship, but based on how things played out, I think one can consider this to be implied without drinking too much of the Kool-Aid. The fact that Yarrow with a Y was bleeding for his failure and was covered in blood from his exertion suggests that the Yarrow had some sort of physical body and are not just some sort of pure energy or something else. This isn't much, but it's something at least. One thing I wonder, though, is why did Yarrow with a Y decide to split this fit into 11 clans as a result of his anger? Perhaps the goal was that he no longer wanted to be a leader as he felt like a failure and was also dealing with his grief. Perhaps his goal was to try to divide this fit into reasonably sized groups that a single fit holder would be able to successfully manage. This idea of the clans being split gives me images of the story about the Tower of Babel in the Bible. On another note, this terminal doesn't specifically use the word older, but instead uses the word royalty. Based on discussions in previous terminals, it seems almost certain that the olders are this fit and are considered royalty. Of course, things are never certain, and there are other possibilities I am sure people will share in the comments as the story progresses. Interestingly, the last line makes it appear that this fit shaped Lowan into a paradise for Yarrow with a Y and Pythia. Perhaps this would be a place for Yarrow and Pythia to live together in peace and at the same time be a place this fit could prosper. This would create a sort of symbiotic relationship between the Yarrow and Svit that could partially explain how the Yarrow were benefiting from giving the Svit sentience. Don't know what this is for, but let's continue on. So that switch was what kind of like another critical switch to open up more portions of the level. It lowered some lava later on or made it so we can jump across a spot, as you will soon see. So now rather than going this way, we're coming up here. We didn't come up here before because we wouldn't have been able to progress. So what we need to do is, this is actually a dead end right here. We need to get down there. So this lava, that lava right there lowered. And there's actually a pattern buffer down there. You can actually see it. I think you can see it from some earlier portions of the level. What we need to do is we need to jump across here. It's not necessarily super obvious that's what you're supposed to do, but it is. The fact that there's a dead end kind of helps you get pushed in that kind of idea. There's also a switch somewhere in the level that can look down here. This part of the level is annoying, and that's why. Is he trying to kill the tick? I don't know. But anyways, we want to go this way first. And those cyborgs attack each other. And there's like a ×2 shield recharge station here that is helpful. We're actually almost out of ammo. This level sucks up some ammo and doesn't give you a lot of ammo, so that's not a great combination. But the next level does have a lot of ammo on it. Okay, we killed those guys. Not a big deal. I knew we'd get them, but you know, it's nice to take them out. Of course, there's more that appears. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. We're trying to kill everything. Not sure why, just because. Oh, my game was kind of... Okay. Let me get out of here. What the heck? Well, let's try this again. Just want to kill everything. Just have everything spawn. This This is the most annoying part of the level. Just because it's hard to fight anything, because everything is on straight lines, everything you're trying to fight. This is a lot better strategy than what I was doing, even though... Especially because they don't want to come in this room for whatever reason. Oh, he came in here. Okay, there's a ton of cyborgs down, but there's a few more Flick that we gotta kill still. They're over here, they're kind of stuck. Okay, there's all that ammo. So we're depleting our ammo, but we still have most of our assault rifle ammo, and the next ammo level will have a lot of ammo, so we're doing fine. We should actually run back and save it real quick, to be honest. You don't have to deal with that again. This next area can be kind of tough too, but there's a little trick. You can just leave the door open. You actually just take his hit since it's a shield recharge station right now. There's some more cyborgs that appear on each side of us. We'll see them around here somewhere. Okay, they're done with. Okay, they're done with. Get some Flick out here. We'll just let them come on down. Okay, that's pretty much everything. I think there's a... I'm trying to remember if there's a pattern buffer up here, if we should go back and save it. You really don't need to go back and heal because... Alright, let's jump across. Alright. Hit this switch. Terminal from Durandal, another terminal, hit that switch. There's the pattern buffer. So we can save it. I mean, this terminal.
The royalty of the clans have shared their knowledge of the Svidkur, each master holding a line of the truth in secret and another line in common. Each clan possessed 2 pieces of the whole, gifts from the Svidkur before departing. We know the truth of the 11th clan, that they awaited our unity to join us again. These tunnels will be flooded and sealed. Any who find this place can learn the final message of the Svidkur. We have no time to decipher its meaning. Clea, whom you have taken, between Yula and Ja, all in a line. Replace Clea with the marsh. Take the place to be the mark. Mark the time from our exodus. Every 459.231 rotations. Search the GS side. Quarter way to the sun. Around and under the marshes. When all are one, the Svidkur will return.
This terminal is very important to our quest to learn about the Spit Cur. We learn that the royalty or elders of each clan had a piece of knowledge about the Spit Cur. Each of them had two lines, one that was a secret and one that was common. These lines are pieces of a secret message provided by the Spit Cur. Somehow the elders ended up with a message that contains 12 lines. I am not sure how that math works out. If each of the 10 clans, excluding the Spit Cur, had a secret message, that would be 10 lines. Then you add one from the common line that they shared, and that would be 11 lines. Where does this 12th line come from? Is this a mistake by Bungie, thinking that the Spit Cur should have held one of the lines? Or perhaps two of these lines actually should have been one line? I think the most likely possibility is the last two lines are actually the shared line. When all are one, the Spit Cur will return. This certainly sounds like a line that would likely be one shared by all the clans. Whatever the case, the Spit who wrote this message tells us that they have learned the final message but do not have the time to decipher its meaning. The Spit, however, were able to gather that the Spit Cur had awaited the unity of the clans before they would decide to return. This is likely why the Spit Cur left pieces of messages with each of the elders. The reason being, of course, so that they could find the Spit Cur when the clans were once again united. The Spit tells us that these tunnels were flooded and sealed once they left. This must be the lava we had to get through in order to reach this terminal. It's likely they did this to keep the whereabouts of the Spit Cur from the fore. Now let's try to decipher the Spit Cur's message. The Spit Cur mentioned that they have taken Kilia. This is of course the third moon of Lowan, which Yarrow with a Y sent into the stars. We already know this. Yaloa and Tigia are presumably the other two sister moons of Lowan. Apparently at some point in time, all three of these moons line up in the sky with Kilia in the middle. Since Kilia is now gone, the three moons will no longer line up. When the Spit Cur says to replace the marsh with Kilia, I think that they mean the marsh will line up between the other two sister moons that still orbit Lowan. It essentially is the closest thing to Kilia being between the other two moons when the event would have taken place. This of course doesn't make a lot of sense when you consider Kilia leaving would have thrown everything out of orbit, but hey, it's just a game, right? Regardless, it appears this event would happen every 459.231 rotations. It seems that the time the Spit Cur left Lowan on Kilia was the time when these three moons would have lined up in a row. Now you are probably thinking what I'm thinking. We need to figure out the year that this event took place so we can figure out when is the next time the three moons would have lined up. We know from the Lost Network packets that the Marathon was attacked in the year 2794. We know that Durandal was searching for Lowan for 17 years from the final screen in the first Marathon game. This means we arrive in Lowan in roughly the year 2811. Unsure doesn't make change, the forward terminal tells us that the Spit computer terminals are still functional after 2,000 years. This of course would be the time that the Spit Cur initially went up to Kilia. Subtracting 2,000 years from 2811 gets us to approximately the year 811. Anita Vidboy, we learn that Yarrow with a Y sent Kilia out to the stars 1,001 orbits later. Adding 1,001 years to 811 gets us to the year 1812. If we add 459.23 years onto 1812, we get the year 2271. If we add it again, we get the year 2730. Since the current year is 2794, it would seem to mean that we missed the event roughly 60 years ago. This is not good for our current predicament, and we have to hope that the 2,000 years ago on Sharon Doesn't Make Change is actually at least 60 years more than exactly 2,000 years. I don't think that this would be unreasonable by any means, however. Moving on, the messages from the Spit Cur tell us to be at the place and the mark when the moons align, aka be at the marsh. It tells us to search the sky on Tigia's side a quarter way to the sun. When all the Spit are united as one in the marshes, the Spit Cur will be in the sky and return to Lowan. Well, now that we have this message from the Spit Cur, I would presume we will be needing to go to the marshes soon and hope for the return of the missing Spit clan. I wonder what Durandal has to say about this. And then we can read the final terminal from Durandal and leave this level.
We have the answer, but I'm afraid that like the ancient Spit, I may be destroyed before being able to use it. I must bring you up to Boomer. The Four clearly intend to capture my ship intact, and I don't blame them for wanting to reverse engineer all the improvements I made to their stolen technology. I'd have erased my 7 times tables to hear what the combat technicians on the Kafiva shouted when they learned that I could focus a particle beam at nearly twice their maximum range. Today I have forced the 4 Naval Academy to update its curriculum. The 3rd Battle of Beta Terre must be dropped from the 7 great battles which every aspiring 4 naval officer must memorize and replaced with the humbling of Battle Group 7 at Luan.
Durandal tells us that we have found the answer from this fit, but it may be too late to use it. Durandal needs to take us up to his ship to help him before he is destroyed. It seems that this 4 want to capture the Boomer. Durandal suggests that they likely wanted his technological improvements to the ship once they experienced them firsthand in battle. The terminal image shows Durandal using his particle beam to take out a few of the 4 ships. This is quite impressive technology, I would say. Durandal gloats that this battle will be memorized by aspiring 4 naval officers as the humbling of Battle Group 7. Unfortunately, this will likely still be a victory for the 4 unless we were able to assist and do something about it quickly. This level is fairly straightforward, but throughout the level there are things you need to pay attention to in order to progress. They have sort of like mandatory secrets that can make you get lost. Some of these you can get around and I will show you how. Another annoyance on this map is you will end up retracing your steps back up the level after falling down in order to reach certain areas. I can understand if people are not a fan of this level for these reasons, but perhaps after explaining some of these mechanics, it might make the level a bit more enjoyable for some of you. Not far along the path, you will run into what appears to be a dead end, but there is a left turn that is very difficult to see unless you walk all the way up to it. I got confused by this at least a few times, and so I am guessing I am not the only one. I have to wonder if this was intentional. A little bit after this, you will reach a spot where you can drop off on the right and get to a pattern buffer. Not far after dropping off is a switch that you can hit which raises a platform to reach a terminal from Durandal and another switch. It also raises up the lava in the same room and the previous room with the pattern buffer. The new switch we can access by the terminal raises a platform back to a staircase you took earlier. It also raises a couple of platforms in a previous room that leads you to a pattern buffer and a ×1 shield recharge station. There are actually weapons and ammo in this room with the shield recharge station, but they only appear in network games. You can also do some fun backwards grenade hopping to get across this lava if you don't want to bother reaching the switch to raise up the platforms out of the lava. Dropping off the ledge and reaching this terminal, pattern buffers, switches, and shield recharge station is completely optional and is not required in order to complete the mission. I will note that there is a cyborg shortly after the drop down that will spawn in and you can actually kill him without his AI activating if you don't rush ahead. The key is just not stepping on the polygon across the lava, it seems. Just a small quirk I noticed. Continuing on a bit along the path, you will notice a couple openings up above, which is where you need to jump across to reach the last room of this level. You can actually grenade hop up there using the walls to help propel you up. This is of course a speedrun tactic. When you get to this fit terminal, you will notice some bones along with some brown and black dirt on the floor and ceiling. This makes me wonder if there are some Spit that died to the floor after making this message on this terminal. There are actually a bunch of other locations throughout the level with this dirt besides this one, which certainly could be remnants of some of the Spit dying before the 4 were able to take all of them as prisoners. A bit later on, we reach a staircase that has a spot which is disconnected and we need to jump across. If you're rushing through, you will miss an important drop off to the right here. This leads to another Spit terminal with a bunch of the dirt spots. This room also has a switch. Hitting the switch reveals another switch. Okay, I guess. The switch that is revealed does some important things for us. Unimportantly, it lowers the lava in the previous room that we jumped across. This is a nice visual cue that we did something. This switch also lowers the lava in a room we passed earlier, which is important to completing the level. We will need to go back to that room. Before we get to that room though, I will mention that this switch can be toggled on and off. Prior to hitting the switch that reveals this switch, you can actually toggle the switch on and off through the wall. How fun! If you get confused whether you have the switch in the right position, all you need to do is check the previous room to see if the lava is in the lowered position. Heading on to the room with the lowered lava, we are now able to reach another room with this fit terminal, a ×1 shield recharge station, and another switch. Man, does Greg love his switches. You can actually get to this room without lowering the lava and instead grenade hopping across, which is quite fun. You should try it. The switch in this room raises and lowers the lava in a bunch of areas. We have to hit this switch to lower the lava in order to progress. This switch can also be toggled on and off, so make sure it is in the right position for the lava to be lowered. I think the idea is that these switches are what allow this fit to lower and raise lava as discussed in this fit terminal that reads, "These tunnels will be flooded and sealed." It is cool to tie a physical thing in the game to something we read in a terminal. I think this is why we have to kinda go into a sort of secret area in order to lower the lava and reach the switch. In order to reach the area we revealed, we need to make a jump over previous areas in the map. This isn't super obvious that this is what you are supposed to do either. At the start of this area is a pattern buffer, which is super important because the next area can actually be quite challenging. I think the next room is supposed to be one of the geothermal shafts that Durandal told us about in the last level on Bob's Big Date. The room is actually quite dangerous as cyborgs will appear and there isn't much room to maneuver. The corner of the room has a couple of switches that will raise and lower a platform in the corner. This takes us to a switch that raises all the lava back and reverses the previous switch we ran across. This switch can actually be used to kill some of the cyborgs after they teleport in, but it is annoying to have to run back and forth trying to get them to spawn and then hitting the switch and waiting for them to die. Not to mention that if the cyborgs are too far away, the game won't process the lava damage on them. This makes this switch pretty much useless. Also, I found this platform can be a little finicky and it will raise back up on its own, but I'm not sure why and it didn't seem worth digging into. A short ways on is a switch next to a ×2 shield recharge station. You hit this switch to open a door that is supposed to close behind you. This is pretty easy to get around by just hitting the switch again while it is partially open or closed. Now we can easily get back to the ×2 shield recharge station if we need it. Our next step is the jump to the final room. There is a switch in here which does the same thing as the other switches that raise and lower the lava in the last areas of the map. As I speculated before, this appears to be how this fit raises up the lava in their final moments. This switch also reveals the final two terminals. There's another switch that reveals a couple of pattern buffers. These terminals can actually be read without even revealing them, which is quite interesting. It is just a quirk in the game's engine. Well, that's it for this level. I hope discussing all these switches and quirks in this level helps you guys enjoy it a bit more. This completes the Citadel and an important milestone in the Marathon's plot. Things are really going to heat up going forward, so buckle up and get ready. See you all next time on If I Had a Rocket Launcher, I'd Make Someone Pay.